Well, folks, buckle up, because the gavel has fallen on one of the most anticipated tech antitrust cases in, well, recent memory, and Google just walked out of court, not with a black eye, but practically a high five from the stock market. Remember all that buzz, all those whispers about, breaking up the tech giant, forcing it to shed its prized possessions?
Yeah, it was a huge overhang.
Turns out, Judge Amit Mehta had let's say, a different vision, one that sent Google's and actually even Apple's shares soaring.
Indeed. What we've witnessed is, I think, a landmark judicial decision. While it certainly imposes new responsibilities, it ultimately preserves the core structure of Google's business.
Right.
This ruling represents a really critical moment in how we interpret and apply antitrust law in this, rapidly evolving landscape of digital dominance. The stakes couldn't have been higher, really, for the companies that underpin so much of our online lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. And our mission today is to cut through the legal jargon, maybe some of the media noise surrounding Judge Amit Mehta's pivotal ruling in the Google antitrust case. We really want to understand what happened, what the judge's rationale was, and what this all means for Google, for Apple, and, for the broader competitive landscape of the internet.
Yeah.
This isn't just some dry legal update. It's a deep dive into that intricate dance between these colossal tech companies, government oversight, and, well, the powerful, ever-shifting market forces that shape your digital experience every single day. We've meticulously analyzed the latest insights from top financial news and legal analyses, trying to distill the judge's detailed reasoning and, of course, the immediate market reaction straight to the core of what you need to know.
And we'll be using these comprehensive analyses as our roadmap, basically, guiding us through the complexities of this landmark decision. They provide an excellent lens, I think, through which to examine both the immediate practical outcomes and, maybe more importantly, the far-reaching implications of this ruling.
Okay, let's unpack this monumental decision then. We should probably start with what Google didn't have to do, the parts of the ruling that represent, significant wins for the company and, for its shareholders too.
Right, the big size of relief.
Exactly. The biggest question looming over this entire trial, the one that truly made everyone hold their breath, was whether Google would be forced to divest, to sell off some of its most ubiquitous products.
The structural remedies, yeah.
The core information here is that Google, traded under its stock tickers GOG and GOG, will not be forced to sell its Chrome browser. That was a monumental victory for them. I mean, just imagine the disruption if Chrome, which is practically synonymous with internet browsing for billions, had to be spun off.
Oh, massive.
But the judge explicitly said no dice to that. And not only that, but the Justice Department, the DOJ, had also aggressively pushed for a forced sale of Google's entire search business.
Even bigger.
That, too, was unequivocally denied.
Oh.
This really takes that whole breakup scenario off the table for Google's core revenue engines.
Yeah, the preservation of Chrome within Google's fold is, well, without exaggeration, Google's primary victory in this entire saga. Chrome is far more than just a web browser. It functions as a strategic gateway, right? A critical on-ramp to Google's vast ecosystem of services.
The front door, basically.
Exactly. Think of it as the ultimate digital passport. Through Chrome, millions and millions of users seamlessly access Google Search, their Gmail, YouTube, Google Docs, countless other platforms. Its market dominance is, well, it's staggering. For many people, their internet experience is their Chrome experience.
It really is.
So a forced divestment would have been a radical structural remedy, fundamentally dismembering a key limb of Google's operational body. It would sever the primary conduit through which Google gathers crucial user data, drives its massive advertising revenues, and perpetuates its powerful network effects.
Right.
Maintaining Chrome allows Google to keep its product suite integrated, ensuring a cohesive and, well, efficient user journey that benefits from the synergy across its various offerings. This aspect alone would have reshaped the competitive landscape in, frankly, unimaginable ways. So this ruling truly secures Google's integrated front door to the internet.
That's such a crucial point, the sheer ubiquity of Chrome, how ingrained it is in so many people's digital routines. It's hard to overstate its importance. But, okay, why did Judge Mehta ultimately decide against such a dramatic structural change? He characterized divestment as a poor fit for the case.
Right.
And this is where the judge's specific legal reasoning becomes absolutely critical. He stated, I'm quoting directly from the ruling here, after 2 complete trials, this court cannot find that Google's market dominance is sufficiently attributable to its illegal conduct to justify divestiture. He further clarified that such radical structural relief would necessitate a more heightened causal connection than the government had demonstrated. Okay, so for us, the non-lawyers, what does poor fit and heightened causal connection truly mean in plain English? How did the judge weigh market dominance against, the alleged illegal conduct?
Well, that phrase, heightened causal connection, that's really the linchpin of this particular decision. And it's a fascinating insight into judicial philosophy and modern antitrust. In essence, Judge Mehta acknowledged Google's substantial market dominance. I mean, that much was evident throughout the trials. It isn't seriously disputed.
Sure.
But what he found was that the government hadn't provided sufficient evidence to prove that Google's dominance was directly and predominantly a result of its illegal anti-competitive conduct, rather than, for example, just developing superior products, innovating effectively, or benefiting from powerful network effects that consumers genuinely value.
Okay, so it's not just that they're dominant, but why?
Precisely. The judge is essentially saying, yes, Google is incredibly powerful, but you, the government, haven't definitively proven that this power exists because of the specific illegal actions you've demonstrated to the degree that warrants breaking up the company. It's not enough to show that a company is big and also engaged in some problematic behavior. You have to establish a clear, direct, and significant link between the illegal behavior and the entrenched market power for such a drastic remedy.
That makes sense.
And that sets an incredibly high evidentiary bar for structural remedies in these fast-moving, innovative digital markets.
So if I'm following this, it's a bit like saying, okay, we can see you're the undisputed champion in this sport, absolutely dominating the league, but we can't break up your team and force you to play separately unless we can prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you cheated specifically to achieve that championship status.
Right.
And not just that you're exceptionally talented and strategically brilliant. It's a nuanced distinction, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it has massive implications. It suggests a judiciary that's very cautious about imposing remedies that could inadvertently stifle innovation or disrupt a market where consumer preference also plays a pretty significant role.
Exactly. That precedent really raises the bar for future antitrust cases, particularly those targeting other dominant tech companies. It suggests that merely demonstrating a company's immense market power or even proving specific instances of anti-competitive behavior might not be sufficient to justify a forced breakup. Prosecutors will likely need to focus even more intensely on establishing an undeniable, strong causal link between specific illegal conduct and the resulting market structure. This could potentially shift the DOJ's strategy, maybe away from structural separations towards more targeted behavioral or conduct-based restrictions in upcoming cases.
Interesting.
It also forces a critical look at how we define and measure causation in industries characterized by such rapid technological change and these really strong network effects.
And the judge's reluctance to break up Google didn't stop at Chrome, did it? He also rejected the DOJ's request for something called a contingent divestment of Google's Android operating system.
That's right.
The ruling stated clearly that the government did not present any evidence to justify a contingent structural remedy. Okay, that phrase, contingent divestment itself, sounds pretty complex. What exactly might that have entailed, and why was the government's lack of evidence such a critical factor here?
Well, the concept of contingent divestment for Android was, frankly, an even more ambitious ask by the DOJ. It's essentially an if-then scenario for a corporate breakup. If Google failed to comply with certain behavioral remedies, or maybe if a predefined level of competition wasn't achieved within a specific time frame, then the Android operating system would be spun off into a separate entity.
Wow.
This isn't just selling a browser, it's potentially fragmenting an entire mobile ecosystem that powers billions of devices worldwide.
Yeah, that's massive.
So the judge's emphasis on the government's failure to present sufficient evidence is foundational. In legal proceedings, especially when proposing such radical remedies, the burden of proof rests very heavily on the plaintiff, on the government in this case. The DOJ needed to convincingly demonstrate not just that such a remedy was desirable, but that it was a justified and necessary response to proven illegal conduct, and that the contingency conditions themselves were, well-defined and enforceable.
Right, you can't just say if things don't get better.
Exactly. The court found that this robust evidentiary standard simply wasn't met. This was another profound victory for Google, protecting its deeply integrated mobile ecosystem and its strategic position as a foundational platform provider in the smartphone market, where Android's reach is just unparalleled. Maintaining Android's unity is absolutely vital for Google's overarching strategy, from search to advertising to AI integration across devices.
That makes perfect sense. Without that crucial evidentiary backing, Even the most, I guess, compelling legal argument falls short. It really highlights the legal system's caution when it comes to disrupting established, complex, and widely used technological infrastructures. For us, the users, a breakup or even a contingent threat to Android would have likely sent massive ripples through the mobile device market and the apps we all rely on daily. It could have potentially led to a fragmented, maybe less stable user experience.
Definitely could have.
Now let's talk about another massive win for Google and honestly a huge sigh of relief for another tech giant. The infamous Apple deal lives on.
Ah, yes, the $20 billion question.
This is a number that consistently makes my jaw drop. Judge Mehta ruled that Google can continue making payments to distribution partners for preloading or placement of Google Search, Chrome, or Gen AI products. And this specifically allows Google to continue its estimated $20 billion per year payments to Apple. Let me just say that again, $20 billion a year, just for Google Search to remain the default search engine in Apple's Safari browser and Siri.
It's an astounding figure. And this specific aspect of the ruling is absolutely pivotal, with far-reaching implications for both Google and Apple, and by extension for the entire competitive landscape of search. For Google, this isn't just an expense. It's a profound strategic investment that secures their access to an incredibly valuable premium user base.
Right, the iPhone user.
Exactly. Consider the sheer scale. iPhones, iPads, and Macs collectively represent billions of active devices used by, generally speaking, affluent and engaged consumers. Having Google Search as the default on these devices ensures an unparalleled stream of high-quality search queries right out of the box.
Now, defaults are sticky.
Incredibly sticky. This is critical because most people simply do not change default settings on their devices. That user inertia translates directly into consistent search traffic, which, as we know, is the lifeblood of Google's advertising business. Moreover, this payment acts as an incredibly effective competitive barrier. It effectively prevents rival search engines from easily gaining a significant foothold in this lucrative segment of the market. Without this deal, a substantial portion of Google's search traffic, and therefore a significant chunk of its revenue, would be at immediate risk. It's really a testament to the immense value of default status in the digital economy.
$20 billion a year. It's a staggering amount of money. Even for Apple, it's not just about keeping users. It's about maintaining a near-exclusive hold on a critical, high-value demographic within the search ecosystem. So what does this continued deal mean for Apple's own services revenue stream, especially as they pivot more towards services for growth?
Well, for Apple, that $20 billion per year payment is an absolute cornerstone of its services revenue stream, and it's a massive lifeline. Apple has been strategically shifting its focus and, let's be honest, its investor narrative towards its services division that includes everything from the App Store to Apple Music and iCloud. This Google payment provides a remarkably stable, high-margin income source that is largely independent of the more cyclical hardware sales. It substantially bolsters Apple's financial outlook, diversifies its revenue base, and provides a guaranteed boost to its services growth metrics, which analysts are constantly scrutinizing. The market's reaction, which we'll definitely discuss shortly, clearly reflects the relief and affirmation that this substantial and, frankly, often speculated upon revenue stream will continue uninterrupted. It underlines the immense, almost foundational value of being the default search provider within such a powerful, closed ecosystem. It effectively makes Google an enormous silent contributor to Apple's services valuation.
All right, so Google dodged some very significant bullets, preserving its core businesses of Chrome and Android and keeping that, jaw-dropping $20 billion Apple deal intact. But let's be clear, it wasn't an entirely free pass.
No, that's not.
There's a significant catch. What Google does have to do, the new changes and restrictions it must implement, they are profound and could fundamentally reshape aspects of its business moving forward.
Right, the behavioral remedies.
The first major point here concerns new restrictions on exclusive contracts. While Google gets to keep Chrome and Android, the ruling states it is now barred from entering exclusive contracts related to the distribution of Google Search, Chrome, Google Assistant, or Gemini. So for any new agreements, Google can no longer mandate an our product or nothing kind of deal. This is a clear signal, isn't it?
Oh, this is a crucial behavioral remedy, directly targeting practices that have historically, stifled competition. In the past, Google frequently leveraged its market power to strike exclusive agreements with distribution partners, think device manufacturers, mobile carriers, or browser developers, essentially locking out rival search engines, digital assistants, or emerging AI-powered services like Gemini. By barring new exclusive contracts, Judge Mehta is dismantling one of Google's key mechanisms for entrenching its dominance.
What's the practical effect?
Well, the practical effect is that a device manufacturer, for instance, could now theoretically negotiate to preload Google search and also offer a competing search engine like DuckDuckGo or Bing, or maybe a nascent AI search service, without violating their agreement with Google. This creates a much-needed opening.
Right.
While it doesn't guarantee immediate market share shifts, it provides a clearer, less obstructed path for smaller players or new innovators to gain default placement on new devices. It's a proactive measure designed to cultivate a more open playing field, moving away from a winner-take-all contractual environment towards one where multiple players might, coexist.
It's important, though, to emphasize the nuance here, as you said. This applies to new exclusive contracts. That existing massive $20 billion deal with Apple, which is very much an exclusive arrangement for default search status, is explicitly allowed to continue.
Exactly.
So the judge isn't dismantling what's already in place, but rather putting up guardrails for the future.
Precisely. That nuance is critical. The ruling aims to prevent the further expansion of Google's dominance through new contractual lock-ins without destabilizing existing, deeply embedded partnerships that have become, integral to the market structure.
Yeah, pulling that Apple deal apart would be messy.
Immensely messy. Disentangling the Apple deal, for example, would have introduced immense economic and operational uncertainty for both companies and, frankly, potentially for consumers. So the court is taking a forward-looking approach, saying you can maintain your current partnerships, but you cannot use exclusivity to broaden your competitive moat moving forward in new agreements. It strikes a balance, I think, between fostering future competition and avoiding the disruption of established, high-value economic relationships. It's a pragmatic recognition of market realities while still trying to nudge behavior towards more openness.
Okay. Another significant area where Google faces new limitations involves app bundling and conditioning. The ruling states that Google can't condition the licensing of its Play Store or any other Google app on the distribution or preloading of other Google services. Right.
Furthermore, it cannot condition receiving revenue-sharing payments from one Google app on the placement of another app. This sounds like a really big deal for consumer choice, especially for those of us on Android devices.
Oh, this is indeed a monumental shift. It's directly aimed at preventing what's known as tying leveraging power in one market, like the Play Store, to force distribution in another, like pre-installing other Google apps.
Right.
Historically, Google held immense leverage over Android device manufacturers. For a smartphone to be commercially viable, it absolutely needs access to the Google Play Store. That's the gateway to millions of essential apps. Google could, and often did, bundle this essential Play Store license with requirements for manufacturers to pre-install an entire suite of other Google apps, YouTube, Gmail, Google Maps, Chrome, and so on.
Yeah, you see them all there when you first turn on the phone. Exactly. This effectively crowded out competitors from even being considered for default placement on new devices. Moreover, the ability to condition revenue-sharing payments meant that a manufacturer might receive more favorable terms for their share of Play Store revenue if they also agreed to prioritize or pre-install additional Google apps. This ruling explicitly prohibits these kinds of tying arrangements. It's designed to give device manufacturers more autonomy and to foster a more genuinely competitive environment for preloaded applications on Android devices.
So, as a consumer, this means that when I buy a new Android phone, the manufacturer theoretically can't be strong-armed into loading it up with every single Google service just to get the essential Play Store. It's like buying a brand new car. You want the navigation system, but the dealer can't force you to also purchase their specific brand of floor mats, tire shine, and air freshener just to get the navigation to work.
That analogy is spot on. This ruling empowers device manufacturers to curate their software offerings much more freely. Instead of a mandatory Google suite, they could now choose to offer a more diverse range of pre-installed apps, potentially including alternative map services, email clients, or productivity suites from other developers, either alongside or even instead of Google's own offerings. For you, the user, this translates into greater choice from the moment you unbox your device. It means more diverse competition, potentially more innovation from smaller developers, and maybe less pre-installed bloatware that you might not want or use. It's a significant step towards a more open and competitive mobile ecosystem, where merit and user preference, rather than contractual bundling, theoretically drive pre-installation decisions.
Now, this next remedy sounds incredibly powerful, perhaps one of the most impactful in the long run. Mandatory data sharing. The article notes that Google will have to make a number of changes, including sharing data that helped it hold on to its search monopoly. This sounds like the judge is saying, okay, you can keep your crown, but you have to share some of your secret recipe with everyone else trying to bake a competitive cake.
Uh-huh.
What kind of data are we talking about here, and how absolutely critical is this for Google's competitors?
This specific remedy, mandatory data sharing, is indeed a profound one and could be the most significant behavioral change mandated by the court for the long-term competitive landscape of search. To understand its importance, we really have to recognize that data is the absolute lifeblood of search engines.
Right.
Google's unparalleled market dominance is built upon decades of collecting, processing, and leveraging an immense, rich data set. What billions of people search for, how they phrase their queries, which links they click, how long they stay on a page, their geographic location, their language, and so much more. Pretty much everything. This data allows Google to meticulously refine its search algorithms, understand user intent with incredible precision, and continuously improve the relevance and quality of its search results. This creates an incredibly powerful, self-reinforcing feedback loop that has been extraordinarily difficult for competitors to replicate.
So by sharing this data, it could be a significant boon for Google's competitors, potentially leveling the playing field a bit. But how might this data sharing work in practice? And what specific kind of impact could it have on the quality and competitiveness of alternative search engines who've always been at such a disadvantage in this area?
Well, this is precisely where the devil will be in the details, and it's a key area for future developments and ongoing scrutiny. The specifics of how this data will be shared are absolutely crucial. It could involve anonymized query logs, maybe aggregated user behavior data, or even insights into algorithm performance, all presumably without revealing Google's proprietary core code.
Right, not the secret sauce itself.
Not the algorithm itself. But the challenge, even with access to this raw data, lies in its processing and interpretation. Google possesses not just the data, but the immense computational resources, the sophisticated AI models, and the engineering talent to turn that raw material into a superior search experience.
Okay.
However, if competitors gain access to high-quality, relevant, and sufficiently structured data, it could dramatically accelerate their ability to improve their own search algorithms. It would allow them to better understand user needs, identify emerging search trends, and offer more competitive results. This might not immediately unseat Google, but it could certainly make alternative search engines much more viable, accurate, and attractive over time. It introduces a vital element of transparency and resource sharing that was previously absent, potentially fostering genuine innovation in search, especially in specialized niches, or maybe in the context of emerging search paradigms like conversational AI. It's a significant move to erode Google's information advantage, which has been such a powerful barrier to entry.
This is where it gets really interesting, because it connects directly to the judge's broader philosophy in this ruling. Why did Judge Mehta opt for these behavioral changes, like the data sharing and contract restrictions, instead of going for the dramatic breakup the DOJ initially sought?
Right, the big structural stuff.
The judge noted the rise of search competition posed by generative AI, which he said presented strong reasons not to jolt the system and to allow market forces to do the work.
This is a fascinating and, I think, profoundly influential judicial philosophy at play here, isn't it?
Oh, what's truly fascinating here is that this isn't just a ruling about Google. It's a broader statement about how antitrust enforcement might approach fast-moving, innovative tech markets in the era of artificial intelligence. The judge is essentially taking a long, strategic view, acknowledging that the technological landscape itself is undergoing a profound, almost revolutionary transformation.
With AI. Exactly. The emergence of generative AI, with capabilities we see in large language models like Google's own Gemini or OpenAI's ChatGPT, fundamentally challenges the traditional 10 blue links paradigm of search.
Yeah, feels different.
It does. If users increasingly turn to AI chatbots or sophisticated conversational interfaces for direct, synthesized answers and summaries, rather than navigating a list of ranked web pages, that could, quite naturally, erode Google's traditional search market share and its advertising model without any judicial intervention. The judge appears to be suggesting that new technological advancements are already acting as powerful disruptors, and that too much judicial intervention, especially radical structural changes, might inadvertently stifle innovation, create unintended consequences, or even prove to be a blunt instrument trying to fix a problem that market evolution might already be solving more elegantly with a digital scalpel. This trust in dynamic market forces, particularly emerging technologies, is a really distinctive feature of this ruling.
So the judge essentially said, look, Let's not break out the sledgehammer and risk unintended collateral damage when market evolution, driven by something as transformative as generative AI, might already be doing the job with a more precise, organic approach. It's a cautious approach, isn't it? Placing significant faith in the future of technology itself to create competition, rather than relying solely on legal mandates.
Precisely. This ruling reflects a judicial skepticism towards radical structural remedies in dynamic tech markets, where innovation cycles are just incredibly short. It implies that courts may increasingly defer to the disruptive potential of market forces, especially when new technologies offer credible emergent threats to existing monopolies.
Right.
This raises a crucial question for you, the listener. What does this mean for how future tech antitrust cases will be viewed? Will judges increasingly defer to market dynamics in rapidly evolving sectors? Or is this a specific judgment tailored to the unique facts of this case and the specific, highly disruptive technology of generative AI? It's really a test of whether innovation can truly be a substitute for regulation in some cases.
And this measured, almost cautious approach stands in stark contrast to the DOJ's initial, much more aggressive push, doesn't it? The Justice Department had initially sought a forced sale of Google's search business and a complete termination of those multi-billion-dollar contracts that, in their view, have all but assured Google's market dominance.
The whole package.
But the judge denied these structural moves, opting for a different path entirely.
Yeah, this highlights a clear and significant divergence between the government's aggressive stance and the judge's more restrained, even nuanced ruling. The DOJ aimed for a complete overhaul, believing that only a breakup could genuinely restore competition to the search market. The judge, however, demonstrated a judicial skepticism towards such drastic government-proposed remedies, particularly when the causal link between alleged illegal conduct and the full extent of Google's market dominance wasn't, in his view, sufficiently proven to warrant such extreme measures.
That heightened causal connection again.
Exactly. It underscores the inherent difficulty of definitively proving direct causation for market dominance versus illegal conduct in such a complex, innovative, and rapidly evolving industry. The government faced the immense challenge of convincingly demonstrating that Google's superior product, continuous innovation, and powerful network effects weren't enough to explain its market position, and that illegal conduct was the predominant actionable cause.
Tough case to make.
Very tough. Ultimately, the judge opted for a more surgical approach, targeting specific behaviors and practices rather than dismantling the company's fundamental structure. This signals a preference maybe for remedies that nudge behavior rather than force a complete corporate re-architecture.
So while the DOJ aimed for a complete overhaul, the judge very deliberately opted for a more surgical, forward-looking, and, well, market forces-informed approach. And of course, the market, with its keen eye on future earnings and risk, had its own immediate and rather enthusiastic take on all of this. What happened to the stock prices when the news hit? This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Because money talks. Following the ruling, Google stock, both GOG and GOGL, experienced a significant surge, gaining almost 6% in pre-market trading on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Talk about a good morning. Almost 6% up. That's a colossal jump for a company of Google's immense size.
It really is. This immediate and robust market reaction is a clear signal that the financial community views the ruling overwhelmingly positively for Google. The primary threats that had created significant regulatory uncertainty, namely the forced divestment of its incredibly valuable Chrome browser or its core search business, were definitively taken off the table.
Big relief.
Huge relief. While the imposed behavioral changes, such as data sharing and contract restrictions, are certainly significant, they are widely perceived as manageable and far less damaging to Google's long-term revenue streams and operational integrity than the alternatives. For a company valued in the trillions, a 6% jump in stock price translates into tens, if not hundreds, of billions of dollars in added market capitalization. It unequivocally indicates widespread relief and renewed investor optimism about Google's future trajectory. It significantly reduces that regulatory overhang that had been weighing on the stock.
And it wasn't just Google that popped. Shares of Apple also rose by almost 3% following the ruling.
Wow.
And this rise is directly attributable, it seems, to the judge allowing Google to continue those staggering $20 billion per year payments to Apple for default search engine status.
Absolutely.
That's definitive proof that $20 billion a year is absolutely nothing to sneeze at for anyone, even Apple.
Absolutely. For Apple, the continuation of that $20 billion annual revenue stream is an enormous critical win. It provides a substantial and highly reliable pillar for their rapidly expanding services division, which, as we discussed, is a major focus for their future growth and investor narrative. This payment represents a stable, high-margin income source that is largely insulated from the more volatile cycles of hardware sales. It robustly strengthens Apple's financial position, diversifies its revenue streams, and crucially, removes a huge question mark that had hung over a significant portion of its services income. The market clearly priced in the immense relief that this substantial payment, which was very much at risk of being terminated or significantly reduced, would not be interrupted.
Yeah.
It underscores just how deeply intertwined these two tech titans are and how fundamentally important this default search deal is to Apple's overall financial health and its ambitious services growth strategy. It's a recurring high-value revenue stream from a segment of their business that commands premium valuations.
So the trading takeaways for GOGL, GOG, and AAPL are crystal clear then. All saw significant positive movement based on this ruling. It's a resounding vote of confidence from the financial markets. The market interpreted this ruling as a significant positive, removing major regulatory overhangs and, crucially, confirming lucrative foundational partnerships and revenue streams for both tech giants.
That's the summary, really. The market's reaction clearly suggests that the financial community views the ruling as largely de-risking Google's and Apple's immediate future from the most severe regulatory threats. It implies a belief that while the imposed behavioral remedies will require adjustments, they will not fundamentally disrupt their core business models to the extent that a structural breakup would have. It's a verdict of stability, not disruption, from the investment community's perspective.
Okay, so we've meticulously covered Google's wins, the significant new responsibilities it faces, the judge's underlying logic, and the immediate market reactions. But let's zoom out for a moment and talk about the broader, maybe more enduring implications and future questions that arise from this landmark decision. First, let's delve deeper into the potential long-term effects of that mandatory data sharing requirement and the ban on new exclusive contracts. While Google avoided the dramatic split, these behavioral remedies are far from trivial and could slowly but surely reshape the landscape.
You're absolutely right. These behavioral remedies are profoundly significant and demand a deeper look at their long-term operational and strategic impact. The data sharing requirement in particular could fundamentally alter the competitive dynamics of the search market over time, but as we touched on, not without considerable challenges. How will Google implement this data sharing? What will be the precise format, frequency, and breadth of the data shared? These granular details are critical.
Yeah, the how matters.
It matters immensely. For instance, sharing raw anonymized query logs is one thing, but sharing insights into user intent, context, or even algorithmically processed signals is another thing entirely. Competitors, even with access to this data, will face immense hurdles. They still need the sophisticated infrastructure, the computational power, the AI models, and the engineering talent to effectively ingest, process, and leverage that data to build a genuinely competitive search engine that can rival Google's decades of refinement.
Right.
It's like giving someone the ingredients for a complex meal. They still need the chef's skill in the kitchen to prepare it.
That's an excellent point about the challenge of leveraging the data, even if it's shared. It's not just the raw material, it's the refinery. And what about the new ban on new exclusive contracts for distribution? Will we genuinely see a significant increase in competition for search defaults on new devices? Or will Google's existing dominance, its brand recognition, and ecosystem lock-in prove too entrenched, even with these changes? What are the potential strategic opportunities for rivals and maybe the operational challenges for Google?
This is truly the million-dollar question, maybe the multi-billion-dollar question for the future of search competition. The ban on new exclusive contracts creates a theoretical opening, right? An unprecedented opportunity for competitors. However, the existing default advantages, Google's formidable brand recognition, and the sheer inertia of user habits are incredibly powerful forces that will be hard to overcome quickly.
Yeah, habits are hard to break.
Extremely. While a device manufacturer might now be able to preload multiple search engines or offer a choice at setup, it will still be challenging for smaller players to convince users to switch away from the familiar Google experience. For rivals, the opportunity lies in targeted innovation, perhaps developing niche search engines, or maybe AI-powered conversational search experiences that offer a genuinely differentiated alternative.
Find a different angle.
Exactly. For Google, the operational challenges will be considerable. They will need to meticulously review and adjust their existing contracting practices, ensure compliance, and potentially rethink their distribution strategies for future products like Gemini. It will force them to compete more explicitly on product merit and user experience rather than relying on exclusive contractual arrangements to secure market share. It's probably a slow erosion rather than a sudden shock, but the direction of travel seems clear.
And here's where it all comes back to the judge's original foundational reasoning: the rise of generative AI and its potential impact on market dynamics. The judge specifically called out generative AI as a primary reason not to over-intervene with structural remedies. So how might AI truly reshape search and potentially, organically erode Google's lead, even without a forced breakup?
This is perhaps the most intriguing and forward-looking long-term implication of the ruling. The judge's reliance on generative AI as a transformative market force is quite prescient, I think. If users increasingly turn to AI chatbots like Google's Gemini or other AI-powered assistants, not just for simple queries, but for complex summarizations, direct answers, and even creative tasks, that fundamentally shifts the way we access and process information.
It really does.
This could bypass the traditional 10 blue links search engine paradigm altogether for certain types of information retrieval. This shift has the potential to erode Google's lead more organically and effectively than any regulatory mandate could. If users find that an AI chatbot can synthesize information from across the web, answer follow-up questions, and provide a conversational interface for complex research, their reliance on a traditional search bar diminishes.
Maybe significantly.
Potentially significantly. The ongoing innovation race in AI, with companies like Microsoft rapidly integrating AI into Bing and numerous startups emerging with new conversational interfaces, suggests that the market itself might be creating new forms of competition that challenge the very definition of search as we know it. The long-term relevance of this ruling, in effect, could hinge entirely on how quickly and dramatically AI transforms how you and I find information online, potentially creating a whole new competitive landscape beyond the court's immediate reach.
That's a truly profound thought, that technology itself might be the ultimate antitrust regulator in this space. And it brings us to the evolving landscape of antitrust enforcement itself. What does this ruling tell us about how future efforts to regulate powerful tech companies might unfold, not just for Google, but for others in the sector?
Well, this ruling undeniably sets a significant precedent, especially within the context of rapidly evolving tech markets. It suggests a judiciary that, at least in this instance, is cautious about structural remedies like breaking up companies. It appears to prefer allowing market forces, particularly the disruptive potential of new technologies like AI, and more targeted behavioral changes to guide competition. This could signal a more restrained approach to antitrust in tech, where courts are reluctant to break up companies unless the causal link between proven illegal conduct and market dominance is exceptionally clear, direct, and overwhelmingly warrants such extreme measures.
It really raises the bar.
It does. It raises an important question for you, the listener. Is this a sign of a new, more hands-off approach to tech antitrust, one that prioritizes market evolution over judicial intervention? Or is this a specific judgment tailored to the unique facts of this case and the specific, rapidly evolving technology of generative AI? Ultimately, these decisions subtly but profoundly shape the digital products and services you use every single day, influencing innovation, choice, and how your information is accessed and curated in the online world. It's a continuous, dynamic negotiation between power, innovation, and oversight.
So, in a nutshell, for all of us trying to make sense of this, Google largely keeps its crown jewels, Go Chrome, its Android flexibility, and that, eye-watering $20 billion Apple deal.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not an unconditional victory. They now have to share some of their secret sauce, their data, and play fair with distribution contracts moving forward, opening doors that were previously shut. It's a complex mix of wins and significant new responsibilities that will, unfold over time.
And the market, for now, has given a clear thumbs up to both Google and Apple, interpreting this as a path forward with less disruptive regulation than initially feared. There's a clear belief, it seems, in the power of emerging technologies like AI to foster future competition, rather than requiring the government to step in and force a breakup. It's a judgment that tries to balance intervention with allowing organic market evolution to play its critical role.
So the big question isn't just what did happen today, but what will happen. Will the judge's belief in market forces and generative AI truly create the competitive environment the DOJ was hoping for? Or will Google's deep roots and inherent advantages continue to dominate even with these new restrictions in place? This deep dive showed us that even in the biggest legal battles, the future of tech is often less about breaking things up with a hammer and more about subtly nudging them towards a new direction with targeted remedies. What nudge do you think will truly reshape how we find information online in the years to come? Now, just a reminder, this deep dive is for educational purposes only. It is not and should not be considered financial advice for trading stocks or making investment decisions.
Absolutely. Always do your own research and consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment choices.